Hello everyone and welcome to another hard-fought game from the FIDE Grand Prix 2022. It's round 5 and it's Vincent Keymer versus Levon Aronian. Let's dive straight into it as there is quite a lot to cover. So Keymer with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3 and d5. So the Queen's Gambit declined is on the board. Knight to c3 and the bishop to b4. We have the Ragozin defense, queen to a4 check. This is I believe the most popular continuation now. Knight to c6 blocking check and defending your bishop here, and just e3 preparing to develop the light square bishop. We have castles by Levon, and now queen back to c2. There are a couple of other moves you could play. For example, bishop d2 is the most popular one, queen to c2 the second most popular, and now black usually goes something like rook to e8, or is going to play b6, preparing bishop to b7, bishop to a6, or even d captures on c4. But here we have the very early queen to e7 by Levon, and it is now already as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. And okay, now the rooks are very easily connected. You can develop the bishop. The queen is keeping an eye on that bishop there, and already you might have some ideas of even striking in the center, as the white king is in the center of the board. So here we have bishop to d2, and now d captures on c4, bishop captures on c4, and that's exactly what Levon does. He plays e5, he strikes in the center. So d5, we are not interested in opening up the center. Our king is still on e1, and now not moving the knight, but rather queen to c5. The bishop on c4 is undefended. So Vincent goes knight to e4. Now the queen defends the bishop, and Levon's knight on c6 is still hanging. So first knight captures on e4, queen captures on e4, and now knight back to e7. And here we have knight captures on e5. So another game where young Vincent grabs a pawn, and well, will he be able to survive, as his king is still in the center of the board? It's a very dangerous move, but if it works, he's going to be up a pawn. So here bishop to f5, attacking the queen, queen to f4, and now bishop captures on d2. So already we can feel that black has compensation. Even though he's down a pawn, he already prevented white from castling, and now okay, white will be able to bring the rooks into the game, but the king isn't on a very safe square. So queen b4 check, and now king to c1. Unfortunately, you have to disconnect your rooks. If you play something like king to d1, then queen captures on b2, and this is now very ugly. The bishop can come to c2, queen can come to c2, the rook is hanging on a1, so and not a lot of fun. So king c1, we have to defend our b2 pawn, and now queen back to c5. Now we are again on the same file as the king. b5 is the threat, and we want to win this bishop on c4. But Vincent doesn't allow it. He strikes with g4. He says, I'm the one who's attacking here, and indeed, if Levon goes b5, we would see g captures, b captures, and now something like knight d7, attacking the rook and the queen, and the white would just be much better here. So instead, after g4, we have g5 by Levon, and this was not an easy move to find, but it really does wonders. The idea is that now if queen captures on g5, you can simply play bishop to g6, and the knight can't really move since it has to keep an eye on the bishop, and b5 is still coming, so you really don't have all that much to do here. It's a very ugly position for white. So instead, after this g5 move, Vincent finds another brilliancy, and that is pawn to b4. Always a very nice idea. And now not only is the white queen hanging, but also the black queen is hanging. And the idea is that if well, you still shouldn't capture. It's pretty much the same idea. So you have to try something. So queen captures on b4 is played. If you trade queens, g captures on f4, then b captures on c5, and now it's actually white who's better. So instead we have queen captures on b4, and now we have queen to d4. Again, capturing here is never a good idea. You just have to keep an eye on this bishop here. So queen to d4. Now you don't have to worry about b5. The black queen is not on c5, and now knight to g6, offering a trade here. and then now comes, bishop back to b3. If you go g captures on f5, which obviously is a move, knight captures on e5. And again, if queen captures on c4 with check, the position of white's king simply makes the position much better for black. So instead, after knight g6, we have bishop back to b3 by Vincent, even though there was a very, very tricky line here. Instead of all of this, you could play knight captures on f7. And it's funny, but look at the bishop here. That bishop might be a very important piece if played properly. But the thing is, let's say queen a3 check, king to d2. Now we play rook captures on f7, g captures on f5 first, attacking the knight. And now after rook captures, now we play d6 check, for example, king f8, and now we capture here. And it's a complete mess of a position. The engine says it's actually an equal position, but who would consider himself equal here, especially with little time on the clock, especially Vincent. He was already very much down on the clock, but it was the best thing to do maybe. So instead, like I said, after knight g6, bishop back to b3, and now queen to a3 check, where if you block with the queen, we can trade, sure, but after captures, you pick up the knight on e5, now g captures on f5, and this is just better for black. There's not much for white to hope for here. The f-pawns are doubled, and there doesn't seem to be much for black to play for. So after queen to a3 check, king to d2, Vincent for the moment still keeps the king in the center, and now c5, challenging the queen, trying to open up some lines, hoping for d captures on c6, so we can play knight captures on e5, and so on, open up the lines towards the white king. So here, queen back to c3, and now knight captures on e5. But now g captures on f5. You could capture the knight first, but this is a little bit better, as we are hoping to get our rook on the g file. So rook f to e8, defending this knight, rook h to g1, and now b5. Now Levon is starting the attack on the queen side for real, and you have to be very, very careful. But Vincent goes for it. Rook captures on g5, king to h8, and now the position is very delicate, but Vincent is already down to, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes on the clock. You have to play rook 8 to g1. And now with all this pressure, the position is very good for you. Black will, of course, play f6, defend the knight, attack the rook here. And once the rook moves, you have to face the attack on the queen side. For example, c4, we're going to move the bishop, and now white is okay. If black trades, it's really not all that impressive. And the pawn on a2 cannot be captured because of rook to a1 traps the queen. So rook 8 to g1 is the way to go here, but Vincent plays bishop to d1. He wants to put the bishop on e2 and then play rook 8 to g1, but this is much slower and doesn't give Vincent as much play as the immediate rook 8 to g1 would have. So queen to a6, but now bishop e2. Okay, you have some pressure here, but now rook 8 to d8, putting pressure on the d5 pawn. So e4, Vincent defends it, and now queen to a4. Here, probably Vincent maybe thought, as he was already a minute on the clock, that Levon just unpinned, and he quickly played rook to h5. And rook to h5 is a very dangerous plan, but you have to play f3. The e4 pawn has to be protected. And now if b4, queen b3, we continue the game. We always offer a queen trade while having the strong center here. But here, after rook to h5, everything just completely collapses. This is what Vincent missed. Levon played queen captures on e4, and now rook to g1. Maybe he didn't miss it, maybe he gave it willingly, because white is threatening a checkmate here, but only if black allows him. If black makes one slow move, for example, rook captures on d5 check was played, king to c1, and now let's say black makes a move, a6, and gives white a move, then we have rook captures on h7, and black is getting checkmated. Queen to h3 check. There's nowhere for the king to hide. You have to give up the queen, and it's checkmate. So instead, after king to c1, Levon, of course, knows that he has to continue checking. Queen to f4 check, king to b1, and now a nice safety move, rook to d4. And now the same idea no longer works, because not only does the queen have access to the h6 square, but also the rook will be guarding the queen. Just to show you very quickly, queen h3 check. Now we can block with queen to h4 or queen to h6. So here, bishop captures on b5, but by Vincent, but now absolutely everything is winning for Levon, and he has more than 10 minutes on the clock. So here, rook to b4 with check. We have king to a1. Now comes rook captures on b5, and here rook to e1. Again, it doesn't matter that the rook left the defense of the h4 square. If Vincent goes for the kill, a queen h3, we can always block with queen to h6. So that's the problem. So here, rook to e1 was played, and now Levon just played f6. He consolidated his knight on e5, and it was in this position on move 35 that Vincent Keimer resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. And this is not often that you will see such placement of the rooks. Okay, this rook would be a little bit better if it was on a5, but it would be hanging on a5. So okay, we can say it's okay on b5, but a fine position to end the game with. And you resign, you're down a full piece, and there's really no compensation. There's no plan here. White will just collapse in the next few moves. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Not really a pause the video moment, because that one moment where things really have gone wrong for Vincent was, leaving the e4 pawn hanging. That's just a terrible blunder. But if you're down to a minute on the clock and, but still f3, you just play f3, and then, okay, the same thing can still be played if Levon doesn't trade queens. But for some reason, Vincent missed this, and, the rest is history. And after the game, during an interview, Levon said, "I think Vincent was having a lot of fun as well. His play was very daring and full of desire to win the game. Otherwise, I wouldn't get the chance to win against such a strong opponent." So Levon praised him for playing such a fine attacking game, you also have to be mindful of the clock. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank the Hoodie Knight, God for making me an atheist, John Anderson, sorry about that in this position, feel free to pause the video, and Jonathan Kemp for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Grand Prix until it ends. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.